I don't know that I really have a preference. We'll see if either of these runners do as we are off. Both starting from Link's house, finding bombs. Really, really nice to find right away. Don't need to search for those. That'll get us through the majority of Kakariko, or at least safely able to refill them too from the bombable hut.
Absolutely, and getting that refill from the bombable hut is going to be absolutely key. You do whatever you can in Retro, really, to save as much money as you can, so you don't want to have to buy bombs, and there's a 4-drop already.
And look at that! There's another 32. Well, capacity upgrades would be nice, I guess. I don't know. we only have room for 10. And there's 100 rupees off our uncle. A rupee is going to be a very big part of the retro mode, as you may be aware that arrows are not free. We're going to need to purchase arrows from one of the shops, as well as spend 10 arrows per wooden arrow, and eventually once we get silvers, which again, hard mode can only be used in Ganon's room, will cost a whopping 50 per use.
Not to mention that the key logic is a little bit different in retro mode as well. You have to take into consideration that the game presumes that you can farm up keys because keys only cost 100 rupees. So it's because you can farm up rupees, there's really no such thing as key logic when you're going through the dungeon.
Right, but it sort of plays an interesting role in the routing you might decide when you're trying to determine which dungeons you want to go for. To kind of think ahead, how many keys might I need to knock out these couple of dungeons? Will I find any? Should I just buy a few now? But we'll see how that goes. Rywek making pretty nice use of the bomb strats from all those early bombs, trying to go through escape. Does need to pick up this key from the blue guard, a fixed drop, so that will at least help him get through. There's one other later on from the next blue guard. So at least clearing this portion of escape is entirely possible at this point.
Can I just say how absolutely amazing it is for both of these runners to start out independently and go separate directions, and neither of them start out in Kakariko Village? That's crazy in my head.
It's pretty incredible. Usually Kakariko is one of those mainstay locations that you just go for. Because you know it's item loaded. It pretty much always is. Huge number of items to check. But, you know, I can't say that I'm going to even remotely find issue with any of this routing, because it's also really, really high density things. Gus about to enter Mini Moldorum Cave. Should hopefully only take a couple of bombs to take these little guys out. And, I mean, for Rywek, you've got the weapons, you got the means to get through escape while you're right there. It'll save you a walk back later on, perhaps. So good heads-up playing.
I agree. It's risky, but if you're comfortable with your bomb strats, go ahead and go. Meanwhile, Gus does find our first sword, shovel, blue mail, moon pearl, and a key. What is that?
I don't know, but this seems like a great time to shout out our tracker as well. Our Sigma will be keeping those things up to date and put to the test straight away, apparently. There was a lot in that cave.
Yeah, that was a very high-value play. I think most importantly, having a consistent weapon with the sword is just super, super nice. So Gus is in good shape right there. Rywek, we'll see where he ends up going. Mini Moldorum Cave, though, seems to be a good play. I think he's probably going to go to Kakariko to start off with.
Yeah, again, I mean, just one of those safe bets. Gus definitely making the correct play. The thing with Randomizer is that there's how can I say this? There's right plays based on logic and what you know, and then there's the correct plays based on what you actually find. And I mean, we're early enough in that there's really no such thing as a wrong play. These are all places that both of these runners are going to swap back and forth and check either which way. So no immediate gain, but at the same time, definitely some sort of immediate gain.
Yeah, I mean, these runners are going to be running over each other's footsteps quite a bit in this early game until we start seeing some real divergence outside of the first sphere, so to speak. I think we can say that they're neck and neck and just going to be running over each other's footsteps at this point.
Definitely. I'm wondering if Gus might be heading up north to check out the Lumberjack tree, which Rywek appears to be making a north trip as well. Kind of thought that he might have dipped south after checking that thieves' hideout. He's going to check out these caves for a take any. Not a bad choice.
No, not at all. And Gus is going to be checking this one over here as well. Rywek's going to check it. Nothing yet so far, though.
And my understanding on these is that any single entrance that is not an item location can be one of these take any caves. And just a green, I believe that was just a green rupee. I didn't see any numbers on the bottom right, so I assume. I mean, rupees are valuable in retro, but I don't know if they're that valuable.
Probably not. I would have ventured to guess we can spend our time a little bit better than getting a single rupee there.
But Fantasia, we have to beat Aghanim 1 regardless. Why not just go get it?
I mean, you're not wrong, but...
No, don't listen to me.
To be fair, I mean, Aga 1 is one of those plays, you're right, in all dungeons we do eventually have to do. If people can avoid it, though, they try to route Aga 1 immediately after Aga 2. That way you get that nice heart and magic refill just before you take on.
Yep, definitely. In most cases, I want to say that's a good possibility to plan into the routing. Of course, it might depend. It may be that Aghanim 1 is required for Dark World access. We're a little bit too soon to tell that right now, but just laying out a couple of possible scenarios as we go down the road.
Well, the other thing you have to keep in mind is this is retro mode. Those keys up Aga Tower have been taken out of the logic. So there's actually two items up Aga Tower that we may have to get to. And there's a Cane of Samaria for Rywek.
Yeah, you know, that's a really interesting point because it turns it more into a couple of unique checks instead of just the static dungeon that we know it at. But yes, as you mentioned, Rywek picking up the Cane of Samaria in Blind's hideout, Gus right behind him. And it looks like they'll both be going through the Kakariko ropes as well at this point. Starting with the well, of course, bottle vendor, the chicken hut. We do have a bottle, too, which is convenient, so we'll be able to take care of the sick kid.
Rywek has a bottle, but Gus does not. He ended up finding that bottle in the escape sequence, so tech a little bit more efficient for Rywek in this case.
You know, on the list of locations that are not the most fun to go back to a second time, I want to say that Sick Kid might actually be one of the top few, for me at least. I don't know about everybody else, they've got their preferences, but there's a sword off of the bottle vendor, and that's going to be great for Gus, who already has one, and I assume it'll be good for Rywek, because Mini Moldering Thief should be in the near future.
That's a good point, but that also brings the Aga Tower into logic, at least that first treasure chest before the dark room. That does indicate we might end up heading up that way. Rywek does bomb that hut and says, I guess I'll farm up some bombs while I'm here. This is another one of the Take Any Cave locations, which when you're wanting to farm bombs and you get a heart piece, that can be a little bit disconcerting.
Right. Fortunately, Rywek had 7 going in. Quick enough to just top it off. Got 4 bombs in that location, no matter what. And Gus found the power glove in the back of the chicken hut, which Rywek's just about to get. So, at the same time, we're also only 1 item away from Moon Pearl. Not Moon Pearl, I was looking at the Moon Pearl when I said that. From Dark World access, whether we find the Titan's Mitts or the Hammer.
And we still have a few different locations for us to be able to have access to. We have all of the Eastern Palace area. There's Agina's Cave, which of course is out of the way, and a lot of people try to avoid if we can.
Yeah, the game's still pretty wide open at this point. Lots and lots of things to do before we have to even consider going to Aga Tower. Zora is in logic, back of escape as well. Routed through the Sanctuary. Or the graveyard, I suppose, technically. Just a red rupee on the library ledge, nothing really noteworthy.
You see Rywek, I think, doing a lot more of these take any checks, just searching around, trying to find either another sword or an upgrade. Worth noting, and Rywek doesn't know about the other sword, so he might be checking some of these take any's for another sword. It is entirely possible that that sword in the take any location can be logically required to get you into Aga. And I've seen seeds that will stop you until you find that other sword.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I haven't seen too much retro myself, but I I mean, yeah, it's not a bad thing to keep looking for them. Of course, Gus, having Master right now, sitting pretty comfortably, knowing that it's hard mode, he'll only get one more in total. But finding the flippers there, very, very nice. And we've got lots and lots of money, so you gotta make the decision, as valuable as rupees are in retro mode. Do you go to Zora, or do you just go there after a save and quit, find out that it's trash, and then save and restart at that point and get your money back?
I have a rule that I always follow when I'm doing a retro scene. If I'm over 1,000 rupees, I'll go ahead and dive and not worry about it. If I'm under 1,000 rupees, though, I start to get a little bit nervous, especially if I haven't done a whole lot of dungeons, because that's a huge investment. So it's a save and quit at that point for me.
Sure, no, that's understandable. Always good to have a little bit of a guideline or a rule of thumb to follow off of. Gus digs up that blue boomerang, the best of the two.
Don't know about that.
That's okay, we can agree to disagree. What we will both agree on, though, is that Gus is going to check the back of Escape.
Yeah, this could be an interesting play. Rywek looks like he's going to go down here and find his value. He's going to check another Take Any location.
And Gus picking up yet another bomb drop from one of those rats. There's been no shortage of those. And nothing special back there, just the map and 10 rupees in total.
So there was a question in chat to explain the Take Any caves, and because retro is so rarely used, I think it's worthwhile to discuss. Take Any caves are modeled after in Zelda 1, you would go into a room and said, choose either a blue potion refill or a heart container. And there are 4 of those sorts of rooms that are out there. There is one room that models the first sword room that says, it's dangerous to go alone, take this. So 5 total Take Any rooms that are replacing any one of those single entrance caves that you talked about earlier. Gus making a check here, and still nothing. You'll know immediately if it's a Take Any room.
Now using those flippers heading straight to the hobo, we see that there's just a red potion on the Lake Hylia island. Well, for Gus at this point might be trying to think ahead, thinking that might be the first bottle. We know that it's not logically necessarily the first bottle. But either way, red potion in hard mode, we may see our runners go back and get that at some point. Definitely a good safety to have. Of course, being hard mode, potion's only going to recover half of what they normally would. Or 7 hearts, specifically, for reds.
Yeah, 7 hearts for reds and only half magic, even with a blue or green potion. So Rywek finding all that value in that cave. We'll see where he ends up deciding to go from.
Yep, we've got Ice Rod Cave just to the east. We've got Zora that's accessible. We've got Gus actually making a very interesting play. With retro mode, your arrow capacity doesn't really matter. No, he's going to back out? Okay. I'll finish my thought anyway. Arrow capacity doesn't really matter because that's based entirely on rupees. But if you want to buy a few more bombs, that's actually a fairly convenient place to go when you're checking the Zora area things.
Yeah, it's not a common play, but it's nice to have, absolutely, especially when we're having bombs thrown at us from so many different directions. It might be a worthwhile play.
Yeah, just to know that you can rely on that stockpile. Maybe Vitreous has the bow and you want to use bomb strats. I don't know. Just the blue rupee and a blue.
Well, at the very least, Gus found some value in the fire rod on the Zora ledge. Bare minimum.
wow.
So even if nothing else is on Zora, this is a worthwhile check that he's made over here.
Definitely. And that fire rod not necessarily unlocking anything for us right this moment. And neither is that tempered sword, but wow, that's 3 of the swords already outside of any of the Take Any caves. So these runners are going to be in pretty comfortable situation for the remainder of this.
Sub 15 minutes, hard mode, tempered sword. I think we need to re-roll. I don't know about you, but
You know what? It's a comforting thing to see. So I would consider that 500 rupees well spent. It's really what I'm taking away out of this.
Oh,
That's
absolutely.
my taking. And we just had, I believe, our first map check, and I saw crystal number 5 at Eastern. It was a very quick one, and the blue pendant at Desert. You might be thinking, it's all dungeons, DT. Why does that matter? Well, it could still play into some logic and some routing to know where the pendants and Pyramid Fairy crystals are.
Absolutely, and you start piecing together some puzzle pieces that, hey, if I have access to and to clear all the pendant dungeons, for example, it makes you start thinking maybe that pedestal really is something, and you need to take care of that. Not always, but sometimes.
Yeah, you just never know. Some of these dungeons have fairly low requirements, and if it lines up, then you might be more inclined to make a play like that, even if it winds up, you know, being couch cash or something, or Pyramid Fairy winds up having nothing. But you just never know. That's the fun thing about this, right?
I mean, that's rando for you, and that's why we love it and play it so much, because you just don't know, and sometimes it pays off, sometimes it doesn't. Rywek looks like he's going to be making a similar play over here.
I think this is about all that Gus has left at this point, aside from taking the walk to the desert to check Agnes' cave, as well as escape. But it's possible that Gus is kind of hoping to visit the escape area last, in case of a need to climb the tower. We may find the lantern here, which would put the entirety of it in logic. Or he might just be thinking, you know what, there's that one chest that is accessible. And the big key right away, that's actually a pretty nice thing to see. Improves the chances of not needing to go to a dark room at this point, but that would require finding the 3 non-dungeon items next.
Just a note for all of our viewers as well, if you are interested, this race is also being broadcast in French over on our French channel. So I have no idea how to pronounce it in French because I'm purely 100% English speaker. So go check us out over on the Speed Gaming French channel if that is your preferred language.
And chat bringing up a very good point too. Another note to consider relating to the pendant and dungeon layout is that if Swamp is a pendant, then yes, Hookshot could absolutely be in Ganon's Tower. That's the interesting thing about all dungeons, is that you still only need the 7 crystals to get into Ganon's Tower. So you could very easily find anything in Ganon's Tower that can help you defeat the pendant dungeon. Not ideal from a runner standpoint. Some caches... Yeah, that was a little too quick. Some caches near a water switch. I would assume that's going to be in reference to the dam, but there's a number of hints that I have not actually read myself. And there's the hammer, wow. Gus just going to dip on out of here. That's our logical Dark World access at this point.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I mean, that gives us quite a bit of access in the Dark World as well. Looks like Gus is going to immediately head down. Looks like we're going to get a hype cave check here directly.
Yeah, it seems that runners are typically in 2 schools of thought when it comes to initial Dark World access. There's the traditional Village of Outcasts entry, and then there's also the start from Hype Cave area. Both one have each of them have their pros and cons. Hype Cave entrance, obviously, a lot of item locations, not necessarily good ones anymore, but you can clear a lot pretty quickly. And I think that's a very, very strong appeal, a very legitimate appeal for a lot of runners as well.
So a bloopy, and a key. Okay, so...
Fine. That adds 100 rupee value to that cave, and rupees already being important. Getting... What was it, 35 rupees? I mean, that's a couple of arrow shots once we find the bow, so definitely not a total loss.
Not what you were hoping for, but not complete and utter garbage at any rate.
And Gus is just going to be routing a little bit to the west here. Gonna check out our friend Stumpy and then make his way to the digging game. And that'll be all that he can do in that direction. See if it's a save and quit afterward or a possible walk over to the Palace of Darkness. Which, as we did see on Gus's screen when he spoke to Sahasrahla, Rywek may have done the same thing. Palace of Darkness is the green pendant. Just a little bit more information for our info puzzle that we can just plug in.
Gus took a dip in to check the Arrow game. Now that game is really interesting because it is the most efficient place to farm up rupees if you need to. Real quick, it takes about 30 seconds and you can get another 100 to 180 rupees, I think. It's a lot of rupees that you can get very, very quickly, and you can just farm them up. So it can be one of the take any rooms, so it's nice to see that our rupee farming location is still there. And hello, Hookshot.
Oh, hello. Certainly a nice item to find. Gus gonna keep on digging, still has quite a bit of time left. Not a bad way to get some money. Unfortunately, getting a lot of small magics more than anything right now. So we made back a little bit of that cash. I think we actually came out a couple of rupees ahead. But yeah, to add to what you were saying, Vitasia, that archery game, probably slightly more intermediate thing in terms of skill. You got a lot of intricate timing to work with. But you see it a lot in inverted, actually, more than anything now, as some early rupee farming to be able to take care of the chest game and digging game almost straight away. Interesting that with new game modes come new strategies with otherwise old locations. It's really, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, how often do people just completely pass that archery game, for the past 2 years?
Just about every time. And now Rywek about to pick up his hammer. Very curious to see if he's going to go further in. We know that there's one more item, so taking a walk through this dark room may pay off, may wind up as a bust.
Meanwhile, Gus appears to be going in to the Kakariko portal here, so we'll get a look at Village of Outcasts and its plethora of objects.
And we're going to take an initial walk to the north and go to Skull Woods. We have the ability to clear this dungeon since we found the Fire Rod on the Zora Ledge. We have the Tempered Sword. And we have Blue Mail, so 6 hearts might not be the most comfortable. Malfeal can be a very, very daunting boss with the spikes that will deal fire damage no matter what. Oh, what was there? Missed that. I was looking at Gus.
That was the bow.
That was the bow.
That's that's a super interesting location for the bow. A little bit French vanilla there. It is out of logic. But man, I don't know if Gus goes back for that one treasure chest for a while. That's significant.
That's one of those locations that if you skip it by not being in logic without the lamp, yeah, it could take some time for Gus to wind up getting back there. I've seen the bow many times in the big chest, but that might be the first time I've seen it there. Wow, great sequence break.
Oh, Rywek, gotta be careful. He's getting... Oh, yep, there's a dash.
Yep, he got. But he's just gonna go right back in at this point, finish off a dungeon. As Gus is looking to finish off his first one as well. And again, another 8 bomb drop. What is up with this? We don't have the capacity for that. The game is just almost root at that point. There's another single bomb drop.
I would really like to know, just... Oh, man, Gus got grabbed.
Ouch. Wallmaster's sneaking up on him there today.
And just to clarify in chat, the the bow was not in the big treasure chest, it was in the vanilla big key location. So it's past the dark room. It was just a simple sequence break that Gus did not do, and Rywek did, and that's... I'm going to be staying tuned. Gus has, as long as he can continue to make positive progress in the seed, he won't be too far behind, but as soon as he starts running out of item locations and starts thinking too much, I think that's going to really be the thing that puts the dent in it, but we'll see.
Right, I mean, best case for Gus at this point would be that Palace of Darkness or specifically Helmasaur and right side of Palace of Darkness and Armos Knights here have basically nothing. Rywek fairly... well, there's a couple of rupees. It's gonna need at least 40 more to get through this right here, and 180 to take out Armos, ideally with the bow, so he's gonna unfortunately not have enough. Gonna need to use some sword strats. Tempered won't make it too bad. Looks like he's got a Fire Rot shot that still does some decent damage. And Gus with a pretty darn nice Mothula fight over there as well. So both runners, one of them picking up their first crystal and the other moments behind. I mean, there's something satisfying, though, about just wailing on these guys with the sword over and over again.
One part satisfying, but I'm sure there's a little bit of frustration, because you know this fight can be so much faster if this wasn't retro mode.
Right, that's true. But that's just the way that the mode works, and for all Rywek knows, Gus is going to wind up in that same situation. Heart piece for his troubles, not too bad actually, it filled up another container. So the question is, what do we do next? Rywek's electing to save and quit. I was almost expecting a play down to the portal to go to Palace of Darkness.
Palace of Darkness is absolutely loaded in retro. I don't know if it would be a good play or not, though, because of the number of keys.
Yep, that's a good point. That's absolutely a good point. We don't have a lot of money, especially after that Armos fight. We can't even purchase a single key at this point, so yeah, definitely a heads-up play on Rywek's hold off on that for now.
Yeah, early bow in retro mode can be a blessing and a curse. You want to be able to do a lot of those dungeons, but just the investment cost that you have to do, and then knowing that you still have to buy a bunch of keys, it can be a little bit daunting.
And Gus getting this bomb jump after a couple of attempts, having a little bit of trouble lining it up initially. Gets it pretty nice, though. Opens up the Skullwood's big chest. Gonna clear out the front half of this dungeon now. Find a map. And was it just me, or did that hard hat beetle take a really long time to fall down that pit?
Probably longer than we thought, yep.
It's always fun to see. We have a blue rupee.
There's our first Dark World map check. Looks like the other 5/6 crystal is up on Turtle Rock. Looks like Palace of Darkness we already saw, and Misery Mire was another
Yep, Misery Mire looks to be the red pendant. So with that paints into a pretty interesting picture of what the rest of our map looks like. Turtle Rock, a very, very item-heavy dungeon in order to even get in, let alone complete. So there's a few things that would be able to be on the Pyramid Fairy ledge as a result of that. Ledge? A cave? Well, whatever it is, the place with the two things.
That's right. I mean, we're still, right now, the only thing we're missing to complete Turtle Rock would be Ice Rod and Titan's Mitts. And, of course, our access, so either the flute or the lamp. Preferably the lamp, just to eliminate as many things as we can.
Well, as well as a medallion, too. We don't know which one.
Oh, yeah.
But Gus, on the other hand, found a Take-Any cave, decided to take a heart container from it straight away. Definitely good having the lower health of hard mode. And as you had said, too, earlier, the Take Any Caves don't account for the reduced number of hearts in hard mode. So Gus effectively picking up a freebie there, very nice. As we're gonna see what's in Thieves Town.
Solid play. Thieves Town has 5 items in it instead of 4 because that key is replaced with another item. So a little bit more dense than you're used to seeing. Plus, it's a crystal. Plus, you know, it's kind of one of the easier bosses once you get it down.
Yeah, without a doubt. Having Blue Mail, everything in the blind fight will deal 1 full heart of damage. Kind of makes it a little bit easier to calculate how many hits you can take. And we'll see here we have just another blue rupee. Kind of surprising that as loaded as Mini Moldorum Cave was, there just really hasn't been a whole lot else since then. Obviously Eastern Palace coming up huge, but quite a number of locations now that Gus has checked that just have not had much of any value.
You're absolutely right. It feels like we're getting close to something. Like we're just 1 or 2 items away from really opening this seat up. Mirror would be huge at this point in time. Either the flute or the lamp would really open things up as well. So a couple of individual items that would really shake things up. Really looking forward to see what we find here in Thieves Town. It feels like something's going to be here.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty close to clearing out the remaining locations that we have access to. There's a couple of isolated spots. We know that Gus still has to do all of the front half of the castle. There's the Quake Medallion, probably helpful. Not at the moment, though. Doesn't really do much for us in terms of progress. But we still have Agonist Cave that we can check. Some caches above the pose. That's one of my favorite hints to find, speaking of out-of-the-way locations. We know
Absolutely,
now that
yeah.
And there we go, Rywek using a little bit of that extra cash to purchase a key. And a second key. Because why not? That's an interesting location for the shop, too. Because the shop, I believe there's... I want to say 2 of the shops that sell arrows and small keys, and they can be in any of those single entrance, non-item location places as well, because that is not normally a shop.
I think it's a shop in the Dark World, isn't it?
I don't believe that one is at all, no. I think it's just an empty house. You know, it's been probably 15 years since I've been in that house.
What that tells me is Rywek's stocking up on his keys, going to buy as many as he can while he still can. Probably will make another swing after he gets through Thieves Town here. He is prepping to go to Palace of Darkness. The more keys you can get before you go to Pod, the better.
It's a very real possibility. Very good thinking ahead of Rywek, if that's the case as well. And the nice thing about Palace of Darkness is that you've got that dark basement that has a lot of blue rupees as well. So certainly a good place to stock up on a few extra. Might be able to buy, I think, 2 keys out of everything that's... I believe it's a total of 270 rupees.
It's a lot of rupees. It's quite a few rupees.
And just a heart piece in the Thieves Town Big Chest today. Not going to rule that out as valued, again, just because of hard mode. We're pretty much going to take everything there that we get.
Yeah, but then you have to stop and think, what would you rather have, a piece of heart or 100 rupees? Or that key that you just...
I mean, that's true. And when it comes to a location that you can visibly see, you can make that choice at that point, but when it's a location you're going to check either way, at that point you're just going to be thinking, well, it could be worse.
True.
Here we go through the blind fight. Starting phase 3, again, just 3 hits per phase. No matter what strength sword you have, whether it be the hammer or Cane of Samaria that you use as well. Cane of Burna also works. And there's another heart piece. for a full recovery, so not bad.
No, that worked very well, and a very clean blind fight there by Gus, all just perfectly on script.
Mm-hmm. Rywek upstairs now, checking out that very, very helpful hint. I mean, I think between that one, West Side Swamp, Firelocked Mire, knowing what's in Ice Rod Cave, something's with the fishes, there's a lot of really good hints that can just help you avoid a lot of unnecessarily out-of-the-way locations. Gus getting quite the prize pool off of the chess game, though. Wow. An initial 50 and 100 in the very first playthrough. Goes back in, gets another good amount of rupees.
Makes me wonder if Gus is thinking of the same thing. He doesn't have the bow, but he does have the hammer. And again, pot is just stacked, and you don't need the bow until the very end. He might be thinking pot as well.
Very, very possible. I mean, we've got the two locations that are right side as well, but majority of it's clearable, and we've got the number of small keys. It's not like we have to go right side to get a couple of small keys in this case. But let's see, how many is Gus going to purchase today?
All right, so as Rywek is on his way through finishing up here, Gus looks like he's finally making the play over here to the escape sequence. He still hasn't found the lamp. He might be looking for that. We know the big thing right now is going to be that bow that was just past the dark room in Eastern Palace in the vanilla big key location. He's still making progress, though. He's still making solid checks. I imagine he's looking for that lamp before he goes too far. We'll see where that ends up being. So in the meantime, Rywek about to start his blind fight. Gus on his way down to Zelda's cell. I don't believe there's anything terribly valuable when Rywek made the play down here, but we'll get that nice stuff. Just about a perfect blind fight there for Rywek. And Gus is on his way down as well. So it's 2 dungeons apiece. Gus is still fully within logic. Rywek, though, made that sequence break and was able to clear Eastern Palace because of it. We'll see what ends up going on here because of that. Rywek, show us, where are you going next? Yeah, Gus did end up picking up a bottle. So Rywek has already checked the bottle for Sick Kid, so knows what's there and what not to do. Rywek looks like he's going up here to Skull Woods, which is another crystal that Gus has already done. It is completely within logic. We'll see exactly what comes from this. Gus looks like he's setting up something else, though. Oh, Gus is sequence breaking up Death Mountain. This is going to be an interesting play. It's, again, through the dark rooms. These aren't terribly difficult dark rooms to get through per se. The problem is that, whatever we find up here, we know is going to be out of logic, but that could give us some hints as to where the lamp might be, depending on where we find it. Or if we end up finding the lamp up here, then we know our flutes are logical access. So this is one of those sequence breaks that can tell us the most about where other things are in the seed. Should be really interesting information. Well, and chat's really discussing right now, Gus doing that dark room, but wouldn't do the dark room in Eastern Palace. And keep in mind, Gus had just found the hammer in Eastern Palace. And when you find one super key item like that, you're like, I'm good. I don't need anything else. All of the value is probably already gotten. You don't expect there to be the hammer and the bow in back-to-back locations right there. So I can imagine Gus just made the gamble, and under normal circumstances, that would be a great gamble. But we know as viewers that that bow is back there. We don't know how much it's going to hurt him. It hasn't really affected him that much up to this point in time. Just a matter of time how many more item location checks he's going to be making looking for that bow later in the seed.
And that's a really valid way to look at it. Thinking that it might be on his mind to find the bow. But again, yeah, that decision to which dark room do you actually do? Eastern Palace dark room takes quite a bit of time to get through, especially when you're just walking. Gus could have just been thinking, there's a lot of stuff up here. Let's go for it. Why not?
Meanwhile, Rywek about to start his Mothula fight. And Gus, what do we have? What kind of value do we have?
So far, no value. None whatsoever at all. Small key is valuable, though. And we'll set up for a nice bomb jump. Rywek taking a couple of hits from the spikes, going with pure fire rod strats. Down to a heart and a half. Does need to be careful. Down to half of a heart now. Gonna use that green potion. And Kana Burna, perhaps?
Yeah, don't do Kana Burna. It's hard mode. That wouldn't help. Man, he clutched that one out, though.
I mean, a win's a win at this point, so nice. We'll get another crystal on Rywek's side. And hard mode, the Kana Burna will only provide invulnerability in a couple of select rooms that may require it to get an item. Mothula does have spikes, but not going to be considered for that.
So I think the most difficult thing about this sequence break for Gus is that we really haven't been given a whole lot of information as to where that lamp or flute or whatever our dark Death Mountain access is at this point in time. Sometimes you hope when you do these sequence break that you gain some knowledge based on the other items you find, and we haven't found anything.
Right, like if we were to find the lantern in Hera, for instance, then we know that the flute is somewhere as our Death Mountain access, or vice versa. I mean, how many locations are really accessible still down on the main overworld? I'm thinking of Agana's Cave and first chest of Castle Tower. Some cash in a chest requiring a specialist to unlock. I think that could be a 300 and we still might not even go for it. That is a time sink and a half that... again, rupees are valuable in Retro, but for that amount of time, I'm not so sure.
Probably not, unless you're already on your way down there for something else, but nah, probably not.
Yeah, you could make a case for it if you're like walking down to check Circle of Bushes area, and if you were to be able to get to the Bombos tablet, for instance, like just kind of knock it out then and maybe justify it, but it's probably the only situation I can really think of.
Yeah, I'm still at this point. I'm banking pod. If I'm Rywek, I'm probably feeling really good about that bow sequence break, so I'm going to go right to pod. Gus has got to be thinking pod here before too long, because otherwise we're out of logically available areas.
Right. Yeah, pod's got a lot of logically available area to us. Just the 5 rupee on the bumper ledge. So the locations that we can check right now are definitely dwindling. We've got to be getting close to where we need to go. It's that feeling that you had back when we were in Thieves Town, and we still just haven't quite satisfied it.
Exactly. So there's the big key. Gus going to be doing a death warp.
And it looks like Rywek's just now going to be going to check that shovel, which will be the blue boomerang. The one that's... never mind, not going to go there. But what do we do next? I mean, nothing's really within good walking distance for Rywek at this point. So a save and quit is probably what's going to happen, but it's only a couple of spots.
I mean, we have Catfish, which is technically in logic as well.
True. Yeah, that's another... and Pyramid, I guess. We haven't seen that.
True. We plus Aga's Tower, which we've not even peeked at right now, and that first chest certainly is within logic.
Oh, what was that hint? There was a lot of text that looked valuable. Tower of Hera... okay, never mind. Nope, not a valuable hint. Tower of Hera, big key needs fire in the Tower of Hera.
Thanks, game. But we did find the flute in the big treasure chest, though, so that gives us kind of some interesting knowledge there. That does mean Lamp is our logical access to Death.
Yeah, and it's got to be in one of these locations that Rywek's nearing. There's just not much else to look for. Could definitely be in the Palace of Darkness. There's plenty of rooms in there that are not dark.
Meanwhile, Muldorm is down. Very nice fight for Gus. He gets the compass and another crystal. And I believe, was that the... no, that wasn't one of the 5s.
No, it wasn't. That's Eastern and Turtle Rock.
He did also find Bombos, which, you know, if that's one of our medallions that we need, it's nice.
Yep, one less thing to worry about. It's always... I shouldn't say always. It's never fun when you go to, like, Flute to Mire or something and check the medallion, find out it's the one that you're missing, which could still be the case. But the odds are pretty much in your favor at this point.
Rywek on his way over here to Catfish. This could be an interesting check. If it's not here, I imagine he's going to Pod since he's in the neighborhood. Gus going to be showing a Spiral Cave as well. The flute's kind of the big story that he found up here. Otherwise, not much else. I mean, where does Gus go from?
I mean, oh well.
Oh well. Okay then.
There you go. Don't save and quit. Gus stays on the mountain for another few seconds and goes and checks a couple more things. And just bombs off the Catfish. So yeah, it looks like Rywek's going to be taking that walk down to the Palace of Darkness, or else a save and quit would have been in order. So this sequence break for Gus, paying off, but unfortunately could also be taking him a little bit further away from where we need to go in logic. Anything that he finds at this point could perhaps steer him further away from the bow, which again is not in logic at this point anyway. But we know we're not going to find the lamp up here. We might be able to find some good information, otherwise it's just a few more item checks. But that Titan's Mitts and the flute also going to open up the Misery Mire area, which, you know what, we might have the medallion and that could just be another viable play for Gus at this point.
Quake, at least, I mean, Turtle Rock's open to us as well too, and the only thing you're missing is Ice Rod to be able to get through this.
This is a tough call at this point. I mean, it's all situational. In some situations, I would say, yeah, you know what, go in, clear as much of it as you can, because there's a lot of items here, and a troll hint. But the 4 Turtle Rock small keys are not going to be in this dungeon because Retro Mode shuffles them into the item pool. So this actually does become a very, very dense dungeon right now.
Absolutely. I can absolutely see you coming in here and even checking these until you can't check anymore. Rywek, I'm sorry, is now in Palace of Darkness, so it's another dense check. We'll see what we end up having.
Right, another 6 small keys that are no longer within this dungeon, taking the total item count up to what, 11? I think it's ridiculous. Yeah.
It makes you feel a whole lot better about making these checks. You're like, oh my gosh, I don't mind double dipping dungeons if there's 11 items in the dungeon that I might find.
And I think the thing with Turtle Rock is that you just need to kind of accept the fact that it is going to be such a dense dungeon, and really it's just the pain of climbing Death Mountain that makes it so daunting, when the reality is that it's not a bad play. Gus gonna take a little quick death here. Not really bad, he'll get a little bit of a refill, and not really much of a setback, but that's gonna apparently prompt him to just leave the dungeon at this point. It is a long dungeon to go through, but I don't know.
He may be doing Spike Cave over here, or not Spike Cave, Hookshot Cave, just to see if there's any extra health or anything else he might be looking for.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he could go over to Spike Cave after this, too. One of the places the Cane of Burna will still work. Not really coming up with anything in Hookshot Cave. You know,
money and bombs.
And if you're Gus at this point, you might start to wonder, yeah, I'm up here by a sequence break. It's given me a couple of good things, but these really, really dense spots just aren't paying off. It can start to wear at you a little bit. Small key, so that's good. We will need that. Powder's not too bad. Gonna give us access to the magic bat, and of course, because it's hard mode, bunny beams before they start moving at you and anti-fairies will only give you 1 heart instead of a full fairy in this mode.
Yeah, not quite the safety that it is in normal mode, but still worthwhile. I mean, you can do a lot with 2 hearts if you have blue.
So we're starting to get a little bit limited on where this lamp can even be. We know it's not going to be down here, of course. Dark room. Almost a little bit surprised that Rywek didn't just light the torches, but this isn't a terribly difficult one to navigate as it is.
It's not difficult to navigate, but sometimes you want to be able to find all the rupees in here just because it's so many rupees. Looks like you found a bottle and nothing else really worth.
And he's going to go back now and get the rest of the rupees. He did pretty well. Got a little bit more than half of them the first time, I would say.
Yeah, it's not bad.
And we got the flute activated now on Gus's side as well. So definitely going to help speed up some travel. Curious to see if we're going to go and check out Misery Mire at this point. Or what's next on the table. Possibly Magic Bat. And Sick Kid, there you go. Yeah, one of those late checks when you don't get that same early bottle that Rywek did.
It is nice that he'll be able to route in activating the flute, the Sick Kid check, and the Magic Bat all in the same go. The fewer runs over to Kakariko really.
Yeah, no, that definitely adds a lot of convenience, a lot of value to it. I mentioned early on that going back to check Sick Kid is one of my least favorite plays that have to sort of quote-unquote double dip. But yeah, having a couple extra things to do in the area definitely incentivizes it a bit better. Rywek doing a nice job getting through this dark room. Gus finding a small key, so 100 rupee powder, not bad. Rywek just found a bunch of money in that dark maze. Definitely going to feel good about that with the bow. Of course, 10 arrows. He's got a lot of arrows that he can shoot at this point. And looks like he's going to navigate his way back through.
I think he's still missing a couple chests. The vanilla big key check, I think, if I'm counting things properly. But otherwise, we may have been wrong. I thought the lamp for sure was going to be in the early parts of Pod. It might be over there in that Agina cave that we've had access to from the beginning.
That could be. I mean, Castle Tower's still an option. I'm going to assume that was a death warp on Rywek's end. But let's see, we've got Gus now taking the blacksmith quest into account. Again, not in logic form since those Titansmiths were on Death Mountain. You know, sometimes it can work out, straying further and further from the logic. At this point, missing the lamp might not be the biggest consequence because dark rooms are something that most of these runners are very well practiced in. The only downside is that the bow is behind a dark room in Eastern Palace, which could take a little bit of time to get back to maybe realize that's still a spot on the table. It was early enough in, we're going to hope that Gus didn't forget about it, but that's definitely something that can happen.
Rywek did end up finding the boots in one of those spots, so that opens up both Bonk Rocks and King's. Well, King's Tomb isn't open to us quite yet,
Not by
but at
logic.
least there's another location.
So yeah, but you're right, that does put another option on the table for us. And we'll see what our blacksmith friend is going to have. Rywek's just going to head straight through this. One small key left. That's all that he needs to get through the basement of Palace of Darkness. And Rywek trying to save a little bit of money there. Hookshot is not going to work on those guys. Sword, hammer, a couple other things if you don't want to use the bow. Can't say that I blame him, really. You do want to be a little bit cautious with your rupee usage. It's sometimes easy to be overcautious. And now this is an interesting play. We've got Gus heading to Ice Palace.
Makes you really wonder, right? When he's like, oh, forget logic.
I mean, if you're going to do it, go big or go home, right? This could work. Some cash is in the hype cave there. Yeah, I would say so.
I mean, I wouldn't say a lot, but sure.
It did only say some. I guess it's accurate. Now, I'm trying to remember, maybe you can recall this, Patasia, which screen we saw the hint for Ice Palace having cash in.
I want to say that was on Gus's side.
Okay. I mean, again, with it being retro mode, we can't count that as only 2 items in this dungeon now to look for. Because there's a couple of small keys.
Yeah, this is another one of those checks that's a little bit more dense. So you make it a little bit earlier. It's not great, but you can...
You know what? If anything, though, the route divergence has been strong. It's keeping us entertained. It's been really fun to watch, not knowing who's going to find what, because both runners kind of running out of locations, not really much else to check, and just not really finding much that's direct progression. The boots could be progress for Rywek. We don't know. Bonk Rocks may have absolutely nothing. The Desert Torch may not have anything. We don't know if the boots will do anything other than speed him up.
Well, there is the green pendant, so there's another dungeon completed for Rywek. Again, it's all dungeons, so they're all going to have to get done eventually anyway. I think the most interesting part right now for me as a spectator is that Gus is doing... I mean, he's diving deep into the sequence break pool here, ignoring logic for a lot of different things. However, the one sequence break he didn't make when he went and checked Eastern Palace was the bow. And I wonder, if he's thinking about that in the back of his head.
Yeah, there's no real telling what the rationale might have been behind that. Could have just been a preference at the time. Who knows? Nails that bomb jump after a couple of attempts, though. We're going to go a little bit deeper into Ice Palace now. And of course, it's great to have a small key because of this room that's coming up right after this Pengator room. We can just go to the right immediately, and that is the most feel-good thing for Ice Palace. Rywek, on the other hand, replenishing all of those small keys that we just used in the Palace of Darkness. Draining that bank account once more.
Well, we've seen him try to save money, and I think he's doing this explicitly because he's trying to collect as many keys. I wonder where he's prepping to go that he needs as many keys, or if he's expecting this is his last check.
Yeah, I don't think he's expecting to use all of them at once, but he's definitely got a good stockpile, possibly thinking, okay, I need 1 for this dungeon, 2 for this dungeon, or something along those lines. And just kind of guaranteeing himself the availability to check all of those things. But we're going to see what's over at Bonk Rocks now after a slight misturn. Can't do the King's Tomb just yet. And it's a small key, so it's worth about 100 rupees, but may not necessarily be needed. It's not the immediate progress that we were hoping for.
Nope, and it looks like Rywek's now making that call up Death Mountain.
This will be interesting. We know ultimately Rywek's going to get that Bombos medallion, the flute, and the Titan's mitts. That's about it, though. But at this point, you're also thinking, okay, I need dungeons to complete. And yes, it's a sequence break, but the Tower of Hera is accessible and beatable. So, yeah, that's what you gotta do at this point. Go for dungeons, quickly as you can. Because, I mean, really, if we're only off of sequence by the lamp, it doesn't actually open any items for us. It just logically navigates us through dark rooms, which these runners are clearly not shy about doing. So at this point, you just kind of say, yeah, we'll go for it.
Well, there is another possibility which could be out there where either Agina's Cave or Aga's Tower also has the mirror, which would then open up a couple more locations. Could be the lamp, things like that. So,
that's true.
I don't know. I don't know what I would do in their particular situation. I can understand the play, though.
I think for me, I would be thinking of those locations in the back of my mind, except for Aga Tower, because I probably would have forgotten about that because I don't play much retro. But you just keep pressing on and hoping that what you're going to do is work out. I mean, how many items is Rywek about to get? He's thinking, yeah, there's got to be something. Hopefully that one location in the northeast corner of the desert is going to be trash, and I just don't have to worry about it. There's really any number of outcomes that could happen from this, and any number of decisions that are being made based on any number of variables. But to quote you from a little bit ago, Vatasia, that's rando.
It's true. That's why we all love it.
There we go. Gus got the spin, knocked them into the corner. They came out a little bit. Just used the fire rod to finish off 2 of these cold stare puffs.
Oh, very nice cold stare fight, though, all things said, and he is rewarded with just another blue bee.
Just another. I mean, how many have we seen? Again, that's the kind of thing that with retro mode, it's not the worst. It's not really great. We've got a pretty good stockpile of rupees at this point anyway, which translates into a pretty decent number of arrows. But every 2 of those blue rupees that we find gives us 1 more shot with our bow. And Gus, of course, not having the mirror, needs to save and quit at this point. Gonna go to the mountain cave and just heal up quickly before fluting away. Curious to see where he's gonna go next. Rywek just picked up the Titan's mitts. Making pretty good routing of this East Death Mountain scene. And he's just gonna head straight up through the Paradox Cave. Now the question is, does he go for Tower of Hera at this point, or enter the Dark World from Turtle Rock? Of course, entering from Tower of Hera would keep you in the light world, and because we don't have the mirror, getting back would be a little bit less convenient, but we see that Rywek's going to do just that. Head to Tower of Hera first. And now we're finally getting this Agona Cave check from Gus. Could this be what we've been looking for all along? I don't know.
Yeah, it lagged out right as he opened the chest.
We'll have to see if we can get a pause menu quickly. And there's no lamp on that inventory, so that is not what we were looking for. I didn't see a mirror either.
No mirror, no book, no nothing.
So back to loot location number 6. Let's go to the Misery Mire area. Again, we've got 2 medallions. It's possible we could enter the dungeon, and if we're not afraid of dark rooms, then we can clear the dungeon. It's Quake. So the only disadvantage that Gus will be at if he goes through Misery Mire is not having the bow. Not a lot of health to get through the dungeon. Again, Magic Powder is only going to recover 1 heart. We know we're not going to find the lamp here either. There's the mushroom, though, which could become the ice rod or the mirror, perhaps, or I don't know.
There's a lot of things that are up in the air right now, and it does look like Gus is going to go ahead and do it. Not having the bow isn't necessarily a big thing. A lot of runners in Retro opt to forego using bow strats, and when you have the Tempered Sword, just go ahead and use the NMG strategy. It's cheaper, it's fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Tempered does make it a bit less scary. For the number of rupees that our runners have, well, Rywek doesn't have them anymore. But Gus is sitting at a fairly comfortable amount to use a good number of wooden arrows, at least. But either way, won't get that opportunity here. Yeah, I mean, where do we really go from here, though? Mire is going to be a good check. There's a good number of small keys that you can normally find in chests in this dungeon, which will be replaced with items from the general pool at this point. So that adds quite a bit of value to it. As for Rywek, there's just not a whole lot on Dark Death Mountain that he's going to find. We'll see if maybe he decides to go through more of Turtle Rock than Gus did. It's a curiosity, but at this point, almost an hour and 10 minutes in, we really don't have any clear lead from anybody. There are so many things that could still happen to swing this race either way.
Absolutely, yeah, and they're both making progress and making very efficient checks.
Mm-hmm.
And, the one thing that we've pointed out from the beginning was that bow, but Gus hasn't really lost a whole lot of time from not having the bow, so he's doing well.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, what did Helmasaur and Armos Knights have? Basically nothing. What was east side of Palace of Darkness? So at the moment, yeah, not really hurting Gus, but we know that we're going to need it at some point, and it's just a question of when will Gus get back to Eastern to check that spot. And again, this match very, very important for the Group A standings. There's a lot to be determined in a very small number of races between the remaining racers in that group. And every match is important going through the rest of this over the next couple of days.
Now, the first place person in Group A has already locked in their spot, isn't that right, Mr. Group A winner? Sir?
I believe locked into brackets. Yes, I also think that somebody could take the number 1 spot. I'm not sure. Let's take a look.
Okay. This is an interesting check. Rywek is actually checking Spike Cave, which, again, out of logic, because it's up on Death Mountain. Oh, and Gus just got the hint. Boots in Dark Palace.
Now, we know that there's always going to be a hint directly related to the boots. It does not always need to say the boots explicitly, but in this case, it spelled it out to us pretty clearly. And actually, wait, the boots were right side, weren't they?
I don't think so. I think they were in the back.
Okay. And now Rywek's going to check King's Tomb. Which has just bombs. So, still not finding the direct progress that we need. At least for Rywek's course, we, I should clarify, the progress that we need is more my own curiosity of where the seed logically wanted us to go. At this point, both of these runners have dungeons they can continue to complete, and that's ultimately the main progress that we need to see.
Yeah, we're starting to get to the point where I want to know where the lamp is, and I think the only place that we haven't checked that it could logically be at this point in time is going to be that castle tower chest, which I don't anticipate either runner going out of their way. They've both done enough dark rooms that they can absolutely do it. Gus looks like he's setting up and going to be doing this dark room in Misery Mire, which is one of the more difficult dark rooms in the game.
I would say, aside from Aghanim's Tower without the Fire Rod, I would say that this first Misery Mire dark room is the hardest dark room in the game. But let's see how Gus handles it. That's an interesting point, though. If it is in the first chest of Castle Tower, at least they should theoretically have it for Castle Tower, then. If nothing else.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those wrinkles in retro mode that if you're not familiar with retro mode, and a lot of runners aren't, remembering that, oh yeah, Castle Tower can actually have progress, can really throw some runners for.
There, Gus got through that first room pretty quickly. Nice job. Should be decently smooth sailing from here. Might have to take a little bit of damage off of this spike since we cannot get invulnerability from the Cane of Burna. So, gotta be quick. He's not quite there yet. He's still on the right half of the screen. Needs to go over at least one more of those little aisles. And, Vitasia, where is Rywek going at this point?
Why, I believe he's going to close our logic gap here. He's going to Castle Tower.
That's how it seems. You gotta wonder how much these runners are curious about filling in that logic gap too, though, at some point, even if it's not holding them back. On the other hand, Rywek could be thinking, I've got the boots, I can just do this now. It's not too bad with the Fire Rod, although we have a little bit less than half of our magic. But here we go, this could satisfy all of our curiosities. It should even, right? No, whoa! Huh.
Yeah, it's still progress.
Huh.
Yeah.
On the other hand, that doesn't just potentially unlock lamp locations, that totally opens up Swamp Palace to us, which is huge. I mean, Swamp only has the one small key normally, so it doesn't really add much in terms of its item density. But that's an entirely extra crystal dungeon that we can take out right now, and that's exactly what Rywek is going to do. And yes, by logic, the lamp could be in Swamp. Gus, unfortunately taken to death right at the end of Misery Mire, does not have a fairy.
No, Rywek going right to Swamp Palace. I might have checked Cave 45 first because it's a check right there, but still, you have to do Swamp Palace anyway. Might as well dive in.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, you're still looking for a couple of items at this point, so maybe with Swamp you're just thinking, even if I find one thing in K45, I'm going to need to find another two somewhere else, for instance, so why not just go for all of this at once? We could get a check on that right after. Yeah, both runners have seen the hint about the graveyard because that was in Thieves Town. Check this hint first. Fire locked in Misery Mire. Okay, well that's good for Rywek once he gets there. I was hoping that might have been the Swamp Hint. That's always fun to see in Swamp.
So I'm looking over our items. We're a lamp and an ice rod away from go mode, aren't we?
That does appear to be the case, yeah, because that mirror now allows us to get into desert. Yeah, I think that's it. Ice Rod, for all intents and purposes, then, would be the only thing that we are looking for.
Absolutely. I mean, we've narrowed down lamp to so many few so few places that we know at that point in time. Ice Rod, though, is kind of perennially the I can be anywhere except on Trinex or beyond it. So it could even it can't be in Ganon's Tower. Well, we know that much, but it can be a lot of other places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if Turtle Rock was a pendant, then it might be a different story. Ice Rod could be in Ganon's Tower then. Turtle Rock being a crystal, yeah, it greatly limits where it can be. But at the same time, we have a number of locations still to check. So it's just the question of where will it be? Which, hey, that's like the only question that we ever seem to be asking around here.
Petition to get a new game on Speed Gaming. Where is the Ice Rod? Chest 1 through 290.
I was just gonna say, oh wait, we already have that. But yeah, without that left side swamp hint, Rywek's gonna make the play over there and just clear out these 2 locations. Now this is an interesting thing, because if you're really only looking for one item at this point, some runners will choose to just go straight toward Argus, knowing that that's the most dense location in the dungeon. Others, as we see with Rywek, are deciding to be a little bit more thorough and just not take that risk. Maybe you feel like you've made a couple of gambles already. You just want to make sure that you're thorough and cover all your bases. Stalfos wants to help him push that block. Unfortunately, doesn't really have the muscle for it. And Gus is getting back to Vitreous now. Didn't quite make it there the first time, but here we are. Just going to go with some spin attacks. 3 spins per eye with the Tempered Sword. We'll take them out. Gonna have to be real careful. Not only down to 1 heart now, but hanging out near the middle of that room. Very dangerous. That lightning from Vitreous' big eye can go basically anywhere in the room.
Yeah, it's always a little bit risky when you get to this point in time. He's in relatively good shape. 1 eye left.
Slow and steady's gonna do it. Just gonna have to be careful with this big eye. The way that it hops around can be a little bit wonky at times. Pulling out the hammer, interesting. Does the same damage as Tempered with a much more difficult hitbox, but making great use of it so far, and back to the sword. Should only be a couple more hits now. There we go. Nicely done, Gus.
Clutched
and
it out.
There's our lamp. On Rywek's side, left side swamp. Vanilla big key chest.
Left side swamp locked behind the mirror, which was in Castle Tower, which was locked behind a lot of our sword access.
What do we have
Castle
in the
Tower
first
has
5
about
minutes?
Yeah. So
all right, well that solves that. I'm content now. We can wrap this up, right?
yeah, I'm good. Man, so many questions. Where is that Ice Rod? I think if you're Rywek, you go ahead and you clean up pretty much everything else that you can before climbing Death Mountain and just hope. If you don't find it between then, it'll be somewhere in Turtle Rock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we are starting to, I mean, crazy to say this again, we are starting to run out of locations again.
Gus just found the Take Any Cave for the sword. It just had a big 20 on there when we're out of our sword upgrades.
Just some money down in this flooded room. I mean, collectively, we've seen basically every dungeon at this point aside from Desert and the back half of Turtle Rock. In terms of overworld locations, I mean, if we happen to find the book, there's the tablets, there's Cave 45, that's... I don't know, I can't think of any others.
Yeah, K45. We got the hint earlier that Graveyard Ledge was only cash, and we're probably going to be okay there. So yeah, we're kind of in an interesting spot, all things said, at the moment. Rywek is going to go through these dungeons as quickly as he can. Gus is still really looking for the bow, as well as some of these other things that Rywek ends up finding kind of on his way through the logic.
Mm-hmm. And with Gus not having that mirror, I mean, in addition to making the Palace of Darkness routing just a little bit more convoluted, we won't be able to even go back and check that eastern chest straight away once we're done with the Palace of Darkness. So at this point, not having the bow, making the decision earlier on, is starting to develop a bit of a gap between the runners.
And I don't think we found any hints that have told us anything about what's in Eastern Palace. Even then, you know, the hint we would likely get if it didn't explicitly say the bow is in Eastern Palace, if it even said something like a unique item is in Eastern Palace, well, that's where we also got the hammer. So it
Right,
wouldn't
so-
quite guess anyway.
And that's a tough one. I mean, I've seen hints before that do say a unique item is in X location, and then that location has several unique items. But I gotta think that's kind of in the rarity of situations. Gus using the potion glitch to manipulate the camera and move on through that mimic room without the bow, so the only thing we won't be able to do here today is beat Helmasaur King. Small key count's a little bit low as well. Perhaps with the bomb jump should be able to get through the dungeon.
Rywek doing the blacksmith chain right now. He'll be able to do it much faster than Gus was, in addition to having the boots and the mirror. Plus, he can go ahead and abandon the purple chest because of that hint we got earlier.
Oof, Gus getting bonked a little bit there by that hard hat beetle. That guy's never really in very kind placement.
It's like the designers of the game playtested it and said, hey, what's the most annoying place we could possibly put this hard hat?
I mean, that whole ledge is kind of broken anyway for various reasons, but there's not really a reliable way to damage them from up there. You might be able to throw bombs down from where you're standing, but if you have the boots and you try to dash down, for instance, it's just going to bonk you right back. It's kind of a funny thing to see. It's like practice from Moldorm. Now, and we haven't seen what that mushroom is yet either, so that could possibly be our ice rod. But we're going to get looks like hopefully a full desert check from Rywek, satisfy a little bit more of our curiosity to see what's in this dungeon, which has not been touched yet by either runner.
You're absolutely right. So, I mean, there's an extra item in here. Again, small keys in the overall logic item. So, going to be checking a few things. Big key right away. So it was boot.
And just a map in the big chest. We still don't have those boots on Gus's side, so I have to assume that they're going to be somewhere either in the big chest or in the maze. Setting up for a bomb jump. That looks good right there. Hold up as it explodes, and there we go. Nice. Silver arrows for Rywek in Desert Palace.
Those are nice. Again, hard mode, we won't be able to use the silvers at any place except Ganon, and even then, it's going to be 50 rupees a shot. So if you have the money once you're at Ganon, great.
And that could be one of those situations where even if we have 127 rupees, why not? That sounds like a good number. We can get at least 2 of those silver hits in, and then just finish them off with spin attacks. here we are now heading to the back of Desert, as Gus is finishing up just a little bit here in Palace of Darkness. Doesn't have a small key to be able to get to the vanilla big key chest, but I don't recall it having anything special inside. That, however, is where the boots were, so that's great for Gus. That's what he was looking for based on the hint that he found. And probably going to make an immediate play over to Bonk Rocks and King's Tomb. Now, if you're Gus at this point, you gotta really start wondering, where's the mirror, where's the bow, where's the ice rod? But at the moment, which one will provide the most progress? And that bow is ultimately going to hold him back from getting a couple of dungeons completed at the moment.
It is. That bow is still going to be concerning for Gus because he's starting to have to do these more inefficient checks. I'm really knowing where that mirror was. I think that's the last location of this particular seed, because it always feels like there's something in Castle Tower on Retro Seeds. And a lot of people forget something's there. Knowing we had access to it almost from the get-go, how much different would routing have been throughout this entire race if we had that as soon as we had access to it?
Yeah, that's a fair question. Certainly something that we can't really fully speculate on. The interesting thing about the mirror being there, a lot of people like to actually check Aga Tower after checking what's on the pyramid, which was not possible for us in this case because the mirror was inside of it. So maybe it's just one of those locations they were hoping to not really have anything.
Nothing in Checkerboard Cave. Gus is going to show us now what the witch is willing to sell.
You know what? That's fine.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Again, it's not like directly what we're looking for, but at the same time, super necessary because it saves us the time to go to another shop and actually purchase a key. And we definitely still need keys.
Based on what we know at this point in time as well, Gus has cleared out both Ice Palace and Misery Mire. Rywek has cleared out just about everything else. I'm thinking at this point, you know, the worst that can possibly happen is the book is somewhere in Turtle Rock, and Turtle Rock has, and one of the Bombos tablets, for example, has the ice rod. But other than that, I mean, I think it's got to be somewhere in Turtle Rock.
It does seem to be most likely at this point. That's absolutely for sure. And even that situation that you presented isn't, like, terrible considering where we're at this point. Like, take, for instance, like you said, Book and Turtle Rock, and then maybe Ice Rod on the Ether tablet. We can leave a portal somewhere and stay in the light world entirely for that, and actually make some decent routing out of it.
Gus on his way up looks like he's going to do a catfish check again. He's starting to make those one-off, really out-of-the-way location checks where he's starting to get concerned about where his progress might possibly be.
And it does start to bring in some cause for concern that Gus may have forgotten about that last isolated location in Eastern Palace. Another possibility, knowing that there aren't any small keys in that dungeon, it's possible that Gus just simply miscounted the items and thought that he got all three.
That's a possibility, and one that you hate to see, because, I mean, we've all done that, but it always feels bad.
I mean, for something like that, if there's ever a positive, it's that you're much more conscious of it going forward. And this is just pure speculation. I'm not saying that this is what's happening with Gus. But in general, it's a very good thing to be able to learn from any sort of mishaps or counting errors in Randomizer. You forget something on Graveyard Ledge and it loses you a race, well, you probably don't forget to check Graveyard Ledge ever again.
All right, so Gus looks like he's stocking up on keys again. Wonder where he's going to end up going. He might be thinking a deeper Turtle Rock dive at this point.
That's what I was leaning toward. There's, I mean, he's flued into 5, so maybe we're getting that Eastern Nope back to Palace of Darkness? I thought we cleared that out as much as we could.
I thought we did too.
But yeah, I mean, Turtle Rock is going to require the most keys out of anything that either runner has left at this point. I'm trying to think. We have... I don't think that we've seen the green pendant yet from Rywek. He hasn't turned that in. We haven't seen a hint for it either. We haven't seen a hint for the pedestal. So those are a couple of unknowns. Ice Rod, yes, can be on the pedestal because Turtle Rock is a crystal. And in addition to that, because it's a crystal, it cannot be in Ganon's Tower, so we do need to find it relatively soon. I suspect that Rywek's going to head over to Ice Palace as soon as he's done with Misery Mire.
No, Rywek's got to be careful here. He's at half a heart. He's swinging furiously.
Seems to be good, and this is one of those cases where it's okay to just use all of those arrows. Just protect yourself. It's only 8 arrows to take out Vitreous, a solid 80 rupees.
All right, and there is the third pendant. This is an all dungeon seed, so we had to clear this either way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that does open up one more location. So we got Ice Palace, which Rywek can full clear. We have the green pendant to turn in, or the pedestal to check, and he's flued into 8. So we're just going to go straight to Ice Palace, knock out the most dense location, and get one more crystal in the process.
Question in chat, why is Gus so far behind? I don't know if I'd necessarily call him that far behind. It's a lot closer than it initially looks. He's made a lot of deeper checks. There's 2 real things that are coming down. The first one is the bow is in kind of a really awkward location behind a dark room in the Eastern Palace. Gus went in and got the hammer in the big treasure chest and then left, not knowing that Eastern was absolutely loaded. The other thing, and it's something we just really found out recently, was the mirror is in the first treasure chest in Castle Tower, which has given us significant access to other things here and there and really allowed Rywek to do some other routing that has helped him out. He's been able to clear out Swamp Palace, which had a number of things as well. So it's hard to say that Gus is that far behind. He just made 2 checks, and he'd be right back in this.
And I think that Gus is actually starting to get a little bit concerned, heading toward the well and talking to the bottle vendor again.
He might be worried he mismarked something.
Very, very possible. Another consideration that we might have had, that we hadn't actually touched on, is that after finding the hammer in the Eastern Big Chest, yeah, you could have gone a little bit further through that dark room to ultimately get the bow, which was unknown to us at the time. But the thing to consider is that that hammer granted us Dark World access. So leaving right away and placing that on the priority, certainly there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It could just be a matter of that happening and just not quite remembering to come back at some point. And again, with Retro Mode, Castle Tower is elusive. It's not going to be small keys in those chests, but we're fluting to 4 right now. Perhaps that's where we're going? I see a northward direction. So we'll at least get that mirror, which hopefully takes him over to Swamp, maybe to the Lamphon, and then back to Eastern. That would be best case right now for Gus.
Oh, well, at least he's... Yeah, mirror is looking real good for Gus. It's going to open up a few other spots. It's still not going to get him the bow that he wants, but good shape. meantime, Rywek's steadily making progress here through Ice Palace, doing his full clear, still looking for that Ice Rod. We know it's not here based on what Gus had done earlier. Gus does find his mirror and goes, well...
You know what? I actually like this first check from Gus. It's not Swamp Palace like I had theorized, but Desert's nice and quick. Checkerboard is now open as well. So it's kind of a very little risk thing to do, knowing that there's a dungeon here you need to beat, for one thing. But it's not a time-consuming dungeon. So if you're feeling behind and you can do something that's direct progress, like beat a dungeon, in a short amount of time, it's definitely a good heads-up play.
In particular, I think when you're in Gus's shoes, and you saw that he was making some checks that earlier, that he was double checking some locations, that's when you get a little bit into a situation in your own head where sometimes you're worried about making a bad play or forgetting something. Doing a quick dungeon and just kind of getting back into the rhythm of things can clear your head and say, okay, let's rethink about this.
I mean, on one positive note here, we're about to get the silver arrows. I mean, if nothing else, that's at least some sort of a sigh of relief.
Like, well, once I find the bow, I'll be in good shape. Rywek looks like he's setting up, going to try to get some health refills before taking on Cold Stare. Not a bad idea. Cold Stare hurts a little bit.
So how about it? Do we see Turtle Rock after this from Rywek? Or do we clean up the green pendant, maybe consider the pedestal? All things considered, neither of those take too much time before going up to Turtle Rock.
Yeah, if I were Rywek, I would probably do green pendant and pedestal before doing Turtle Rock, just on the off chance that it's...
I mean, on the flip side, I could use the same logic that I did with covering the Ether Tablet. Green Pendant and Pedestal are both Light World locations. Worst case scenario, maybe we mirror outside of Laser Bridge and just check those and maintain our portal and then come straight back. That's another consideration, I guess. Well, let's see. He's got the flute. Where are we going? Up to number 1.
Yeah, so, we are doing exactly that. I mean, it's the higher percent play, I think.
Yeah, and Rywek hasn't been here at all yet. I believe that was Gus that came in here before and saw a little bit of the dungeon.
I don't think Gus got to the chain shop room before he noped out. Is that about right?
That is about right, sure. We've got Gus going to Swamp. We know that this is going to be a long clear, only to find the lamp, which, again, could be that indication saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, there's a dark room that you missed before. Let's head back to it.
I hope that's what does it for him. I sincerely hope, because the longer he puts that off, the further and further out. He's still making progress, though. So let's not put that out of the way. He's still making progress.
Definitely. Yeah, the biggest thing with Randomizer is just keep moving, and especially if you're going through a dungeon, you know you need to complete the dungeon anyway, so get it done, and that alone counts as progress. If the chips fall into place and spark your memory of something else along the way, then even better.
And I think especially in these one-on-one races, you may feel bad and down on yourself for forgetting something, but you have to take into consideration maybe your opponent does too. It's not even about what you do. It's sometimes about doing what your opponent doesn't do. So you might think you're behind if you don't make a play at the right time or something along those lines. I mean, it's entirely possible that someone else has completely forgotten something as well. So you just got to keep your head down, keep your head on straight, and keep going.
And especially when we have these settings that we do. I mean, all dungeons is one variant. We've got hard mode and retro. So there's three things that are different from like the standard or open mode seeds, and all of those have their own quirks and gimmicks, and nothing is straightforward in a seed like this.
Absolutely. So Rywek now on his way into Turtle Rock. Gus slowly working his way. Is he going to go left side first? Or is he going to wait until after, which is kind of the more traditional play for a lot of runners?
Yeah, there's no telling.
Well, he's going right in. All right.
I mean, you know what? Really, this is retro, so why not just drown the small key? Maybe gamble a little bit of money to need to buy one later to save a little bit of time now.
You know, if I had 600 rupees and a bunch of keys, I would do that. But, I mean, where Gus is at with his rupees, no.
I mean, I suppose. That's another one of those things you want to have a little bit of a threshold with. And if you're below it, then don't take the chance. I can understand that.
Keep in mind, you will need a minimum of 80 rupees to climb Ganon's tower. And more if you plan on using arrows on ice armos, for example. So you have to start budgeting a little bit for Ganon's tower, because that's, as weird as this sounds, that's an expensive dungeon.
Oh, it is, you're right. And those 80 that you mentioned for those red mimics, that's required. This is not Randomizer, that is absolutely required. But we're now deeper into Turtle Rock than we had previously seen. And very curious to see what's going on. I had to actually stop for a moment and think, why didn't Rywek pick up that middle skull pop before coming into that room? Because there's normally 5 arrows under it, but hey, wait, nope, retro.
I don't know if I've ever seen the bunny sprite for Toon Link.
Yeah, I don't think I have either. But we'll carry on now. We haven't seen a Mimic Cave hint yet either. So that's going to be a check that Rywek's going to make. And we've got the big chest, we have the roller room, we have laser bridge before we are done here. And hopefully one of those is going to have those ice rod.
It's either going to have the ice rod or it's going to have a book that leads to the ice rod. I think that's about the only things left that we have. All the other fetch quests have been gotten and turned in.
Yes, but remember where our mirror was, and now that we have the lamp, that second chest is also in logic.
This is true.
Yep.
Man, that would be horrible.
I actually really like what Rywek did right there. Check that chest, that way if it's what you're looking for, you don't have to take the time to do Mimic Cave. And it's a small enough time sink to check it first that if you're wrong, whatever.
Pro routing strats for sure.
Should be a nice and quick Mimic Cave, a couple of slashes. And what do we have here? We're getting down to the wire, just more rupees. More of our GT fund.
Now I'm really starting to get curious. We have what?
One,
five?
5? Yep, 5 more. Roller room and then the 4 on laser bridge.
So there's a strong possibility that it very well could be in that second treasure chest in Castle Tower.
I mean, for now, the odds are in the favor here. We've got 5 locations compared to 3, I think, elsewhere. But there it is. So, that is it for Rywek now in go mode. We're going to finish off this dungeon with a surplus of keys. Actually, really, really comfortable to enter Ganon's Tower with 2 small keys. Good luck with the routing, and finding the big key early may really, really benefit with that. It could be that there's a couple of small keys in GT. There's 4 normally in chests, so all we can do is wait and see.
More than that, he'll be able to do. Yeah, he'll be able to do the optimal routing of doing Aga 2 and then mirroring over to do Aga 1, getting that refill we talked about very early.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. As we got Gus making a couple of these last checks now. Pulling the flute out after checking K45. Again, Gus has also seen that hint about the nothing that's above the pose, so that's one less mirror location that we need to take a look at. And Gus appears to be heading to the north, so perhaps we're going to see what else is in Castle Tower right now.
I mean, at this point, it's interesting. I don't know if it can be anything. If it's the book, I can see it kind of baiting Gus into another direction, which would be unfortunate.
Yeah, that would be worst case. We don't want to see him have to find something else to totally change up his routing at this point.
All right, and Rywek gets his 7th and final crystal, and in the name of DT, my good friend, do you know what time it is?
It's 4:21 in the Eastern Standard Time at the moment. Okay, you guys like this little game. So there are 22 locations in Ganon's Tower. Blah, 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 blah. Where's the big key gonna be? Speed Gaming supporters, subscribers, and anyone that's donated 250 bits or more can be entered into the leaderboard if you win. Good luck, runners, and players and viewers. Good luck, Vitasia.
I mean, I never have the opportunity to actually officially get a guess in because I type the command and all of a sudden there's 80 numbers in chat, so...
Well, what you need to do is just, like, push enter and then control V with a number and just go for it.
That would be
blue
smart.
rupee. Well, there's a small key, which is actually fantastic.
It's exactly what you want here. Now there's a few small keys under some skull pots as well. And Rywek going full right side.
Yeah, this is an interesting decision. I don't personally ever really know how to make the call of going right or left. It's just all about the feel of the seed. And, I mean, having the mirror at this point is definitely going to benefit the right side play if you don't want to go all the way to Ice Harmos through that direction. That's a very dangerous route anyway when you're playing on hard mode, because you're not going to be able to use the Cane of Burna through that crumbling bridge room with all the fire bars. Nice heart refill. And now we're up to number 6. Yes, the rupees too, good point. Pick up the small key here, and then, as most runners tend to do, we'll just mirror straight on out.
All right, Gus is approaching his AGA 1. He knows he has to do this at some point. We'll be completing it before Rywek. Unfortunately, still hunting for that bow and the ice rod at this point in time, although we know we're both.
And by my count, up through number 11 now with no luck. Nice to get a full magic refill, though. Definitely coming up big on those, that 4th heart piece, the full magic refill. Putting Rywek in a very comfortable spot as we continue to progress through the tower. Oh, hey, there's that.
I mean, thanks. We really don't want that now, but okay.
The latest edition of Ganon's Tower for Dummies.
Did he just completely reflect that blue ball with the boomerang?
I don't know. I mean, those things can have some very strange bounce physics. Yeah, not even gonna try that one. I don't know.
I thought I saw something weird.
Oh, you did.
Yeah.
You definitely did. You're not wrong.
All right, here we go to Rando Room, and we have just some bombs, another big 20, fiver, and another small key. So if it's not being held at Bob's chest, we're going to have to defeat the Ice Armos, which, again, that's another rupee money sink that you really try to avoid if you can.
I mean, at this point, I think Rywek's got enough money. You can safely budget for that here. Ideally, 180 rupees, which, as long as we have more than 200 or 280, I guess, between the mimics and Ganon. So there would be a little bit of room for error. Gonna switch to the powder just to get rid of that anti-fairy. And there it is. So that is cheap.
That is what, number 18?
Number 18. So we'll have Rywek climbing up this tower now. Gus still frantically looking for whatever's left. I wonder if we're seeing a play on perhaps Spike Cape at this point, maybe considering Turtle Rock. We know that the Ice Rod in there, it would be clearable. Of course, with the bow in Eastern, that's also clearable. We can always go back to one of the old common phrases from Randomizer from even a year and a half ago during the very first tournament. The worst location, the trolliest location to put an item is in its vanilla dungeon. You don't expect to find it there because it's random. Why would it be?
It's true. Particularly once you've already been in that dungeon. Gus, where else? Is he going back to Turtle Rock maybe before too long? No, he's saving it.
Oh, we're gonna pull out the flute, saving and quitting in the Dark World at that point, only putting us on top of the pyramid. And looks like we're fluting back to number 1, so maybe we are going to Turtle Rock. I mean, you know what? For where Gus is at this point, I'm not gonna dispute the play. It's the highest number of checks that Gus can do that are within the logic of what he has right now. So from where he's sitting, it just makes sense. It is the right play at that point.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we've all had quote-unquote nightmare seeds where, you know, the bow is just buried deep in Turtle Rock and we have to make another play down.
Oh, sure.
That's got to be playing into his mind. He's completely within logic at this point. So,
yeah, I mean, any of that's entirely possible. It's like you said, it's definitely happened to all of us at one point or another. But Rywek, in the short time that we were talking about that, right through the gauntlet, about to enter Landmo 2, avoiding that bunny beam. He's gonna walk in, just setting up this spin. And, oh, actually, I see exactly what he was doing. Taking a little bit of extra time in that room causes the land molas to come up pretty much at the same time, depending on how much time you take. So able to get a very, very quick spin attack on all three of them. Really, really nice instance of taking a little bit of time to save a little bit more afterward.
oh, Gus has 0 small keys. He's hunting for one of those key shops right now, is what he's doing.
I suppose that would help, yeah. We do need small keys. Well, as Gus continues to purchase small keys and Rywek is near the top of the tower, if you've enjoyed what you've seen here, please consider giving these runners a follow if you've enjoyed the race that they've put on. We had a very, very close race for a very long time. Really could have gone either which way. And eventually just had to take a shape one way or another, and in the end seems to be favoring Rywek. Both runners doing a very good job. They've had a great run through groups.
Alright, so Gus purchases his keys. He is maxed out. He has no money left. But purchases enough keys to get him through Turtle Rock at this point in time. We do know that the ice rod is going to be there, so he'll be able to clear it. Problem is he won't be able to find the bow, which is the other item he's missing.
I mean, if it's going through your mind trying to think of what else you can still look at, we know that Turtle Rock's a Pyramid Fairy Crystal, but Eastern Palace is the other one, so at least that's one option that you don't have to consider. Because nothing that you need can be there at this point. But we have Rywek now in Aga 2. See how these patterns line up? They're kind of all scattered all over the place, just like Waffle House hash browns. Yeah.
Oh, nice triple.
Very nice. And should be good for a double here, assuming that, well, we only needed one, so never mind. So, Rywek is going to land on top of the pyramid right near the chicken hole. But still has to clear Aga 1, so we are not going to see Ganon just yet. Still got a few minutes before that.
Absolutely. Routing it in as efficiently as we could have, that mirror being required, so we had to dip Castle Tower earlier. Oh, and Gus takes another death in the chain chomp room, unfortunately.
Very, very aggressive chain chomps. And Rywek not even going to bother with those guards. They want to go up the stairs with him, though. That was kind of funny. They were both in there.
It's like, come on, we're following you.
I mean, at least that kind of implies they're doing their job or trying to. I don't know. But this is nice. Rywek's actually got the perfect amount of small keys for this. So all those small keys that he found in Ganon's tower are actually paying off really, really well here.
I don't know if that's paying off really well or it's incredibly fortunate that he was able to do that.
Little column A, little column B.
We'll go with that. Sometimes in Rando, you have to be lucky. It's better to be lucky than good.
Speaking of... I don't mean to laugh. That blue guard was getting lucky there. Playing very, very well, sniping Rywek twice in a row. But there we go. Back with the vengeance. We'll just use Fire Rod, clear out these enemies. Trying to get a little ding here, get these guards' attentions. Just a quick spin attack, take them both out. And that top red guard there tends to like to notice you when he's walking along that upper path.
Unfortunately, Gus slowly working his way through here. He's past the chain shop room of misery.
Should be pretty smooth sailing for the rest of this dungeon from Gus. Well, it's a good thing that we don't actually need to rescue Zelda in this game, because we're at the end and we just watched her vanish.
I mean, that's the quickest turnaround from needing to be rescued to immediately rescuing.
I wasn't thinking of it like that, but you know what? I'm going to from now on. It just sets us up to look even better when we're the hero saving her 4 minutes later.
Mario, get on our level.
Under the second cycle, the first shot from Aghanim on every cycle is going to be a regular energy ball. After that, it's purely 50-50. There's 4 shots per cycle, followed by the lightning. For an average of 3 blue balls, maximum of 15. I was not counting those, but we are on to Ganon now. Top of the pyramid, that nice refill that Vitage's mentioned a couple of times.
Oh, and Ganon quoting something obscure. However, we are set up incredibly well. I mean, Tempered Sword is all you could possibly ask for. Literally in hard mode.
Yeah, literally at that point. But I mean, even still, for hard mode, we're sitting at a pretty comfortable number of hearts. Ooh, taking 2 quick hits on those fire bats. Still doing 3 hearts each. There's another hit. And
oh no!
You know what? Rywek's just being tested right now, that's all. They can be a little bit difficult to dodge. Now, the problem is this respawn with only 6 hearts. That is enough for a Ganon Hug to kill you at this point. So we still have to be careful. We really only got 2 hits on Rywek's end until we're able to have to do it all over again.
And,
But
you know,
this is
hard
not.
mode, yeah.
What are we saying?
I was going to say, hard mode, you knew we were going to be coming in here with a little bit less health than we're accustomed to, but retro mode, we didn't even find many of the take-any rooms.
I mean, we found the sword one. That was near Eastern, like south of Eastern. There were a couple others that we found that had... Oh, maybe only 1 or 2 others. We found a couple. I know Gus for sure at least got 1 of the heart containers out of one of them. On to phase 3, halfway through phase 3, 3/4 of the way through phase 3, just the 4 hits. 1 per direction of the 4 tiles to destroy. And there's hit number 4. Did you find the arrows in Desert Palace? We did, actually. Here you go, have 1 for 50 rupees. Nice timing.
Nice torch glitch, yeah.
Not necessarily needed when you have silvers, but it can make things a bit more convenient. Ooh. Gotta be careful with that fire bat knockback. Rywek had been about another square up. That would have resulted in a fall. But not the case. We're about to get our 4th hit there and fire 1 extra arrow, 2 extra, 3, however many more. Just drain up all of our money. GG's to Rywek finishing this up. All Dungeons Hard Retro is an absolute doozy of a mess of settings. And with an official SRL time of 2 hours, 4 minutes, and 48 seconds, GG's to first place Rywek.
Meanwhile, Gus is working his way through the final room in Turtle Rock. Let's see if we can get Rywek in here for a chat.
And Rywek, hey there.
Hello, hello, hello.
GG, congratulations on the win. First off, very big match. All of the matches in our Group A are very important at this point, so that's got to feel pretty good for you to come out with another win and help solidify your spot.
Well, I know I have to keep on winning. Like, I still have 2 matches left, and I need to win them both to make sure I'm not in a tiebreaker.
So, how were you feeling throughout that entire race? I mean, it was pretty close, all things said, but was there at any point in time you're like, oh, this was a good gamble, or this was a bad idea, or what was your feelings as you were going through?
I felt this was actually a very casual race. I avoided sequence breaking to the mountain for the longest time, but when I found the flute up there, it automatically pointed to where my next progression was. It's either at Gina or in Castle Tower, and like I was just very thankful for that. I knew it would be either the lamp or something else, and no matter what, it'd be good. So finding that mirror at the right spot, I knew like, okay, if Gus didn't find that right away, then I'm pretty okay, especially since the lamp will be behind the mirror no matter what, and he might have avoided doing Castle Tower altogether.
All right. I mean, the truth is, for about that first hour or so of the race, hour and 10 minutes even, there was absolutely no indication of who was really ahead. You'd both done some different things and covered different tracks, and it was your play to go and get the mirror that happened first. And in addition to finding the lamp in Swamp, more importantly, it allowed you to get to Swamp and even clear the dungeon at all. Which obviously, being all dungeons and a crystal was super important.
Mm-hmm.
So that was just the right turn on your part that resulted in, ultimately, the advantage. Gus wound up having a little bit of an issue, just not quite remembering to go back and get the bow from Eastern. After getting the hammer from the big chest, possibly thought, you know what, that's Dark World access, let's just go to that, which makes perfect sense. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that play. But having the bow behind that dark room in Eastern just eluded him for way too long.
That's really too bad.
You know, it's one of those things. Yes, it happens. We've all had issues like that at some point down the road. So we can all relate. We know how it feels. But
For sure, that's just really bad luck for him.
And that's exactly it. It is just simply bad luck. He's done great otherwise. So that's just the way that Rando works at times.
Also, I heard you comment about my keys into Ganon's tower. Trust me, that was calculated. I had a sheet next to me with how many keys were left in the seed, and I knew there would be at least 3 in Ganon's tower in chests, so I could avoid a lot of stuff. So when I was already going all the way up, I didn't have to kill any the mini Helmosaur. I could just keep going, just so I could finish with the exact amount of keys I needed.
Sure,
Wow.
interesting.
Wow,
So,
okay.
That makes me curious, though. Had you considered what might happen in Ganon's tower if you found the big key right away and didn't necessarily need to go through to get the rest of those small keys? Like, would you have just gone and bought more small keys?
In the worst case scenario, I would have to go and buy them right next to this house, which isn't too bad, honestly. It's not that far, but I had already had 2 keys when I was going in, which is obviously enough to finish it, knowing that there would be some under the pots. One on the left as you go in, and then one on Mini Helmosaur. No matter what, I was golden.
Sure, well, good heads-up play on that to keep track of all of that.
And I think Gus is a little mad right now.
Yeah, I can see that. The rough part was he was actually in Eastern Palace first. He made that one of his early priority checks and found the hammer, so he could have been just right there with you through all of it. With it, he was making solid progress throughout it, but that's kind of a one-off check, especially when the lamp is so late that you just don't think about.
Oh yeah. But there weren't any good hints in this scene, honestly.
I mean, you saw one of my favorites, personally, having the hint about what's above the pose.
Oh yeah, that I guess that was one good one. There was another one for the left side of Maya, which I didn't need to do. But otherwise, I got sick of seeing that there's a spring ball at Ridley. I don't even know what that means.
That's a reference to Super Metroid, man.
I don't even know what a spring ball is.
If it makes you feel any better, I don't either. I've never played a Metroid game. But yeah, I mean, everything else considered, you had a great run. Execution was pretty solid, and I mean, for what the seed threw at you, routing was right up there with it too. So definitely well done to you. Congratulations on the win. This puts you at 9 wins now, I believe.
I think it does. I think it ties me with Vivi, actually.
And you have another 2 races then.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I will be at 9-4, and Vivi's at 9-5. I still have one against Aaron, and I need to win that one. And then I'll have to win another one against Vivi. So no matter what, I need to win the next 2 races.
Well, the interesting thing is that with your win, it spells the unfortunate mathematical elimination for Aaron Doby. He will.
Actually, if he wins against me. Oh yeah, I guess it does, eh?
Yeah, because you still have a match against Vivi, and either way, that's going to put one of you at 10 wins then, and that's going to be out of his reach. So very nice run by him as well to I mean, Aaron won all 3 of his races yesterday to try and close this gap, and that's absolutely amazing. But I mean, now at this point, it just seems to be between you and Vivi to see how the rest of it's going to fall out.
Yeah, I guess so.
So the question becomes, when is that race going to be scheduled? Because I want to start hyping it now.
The race between me and Vivi will be Wednesday night at 9 o'clock. So, stay tuned.
All right, on the last night of groups itself.
Exactly. So we're going to be the hypest match that night.
I mean, we've got some close groups, but our group specifically has been, I mean, Group A, for those of you listening out there in listenerland. Group A has been very, very close for a couple of weeks now, to the point that there has been like 0 indication of who the actual top 2 were going to be. And we're starting to close in on that just because we're in the final week of the group stage, but it's been a wild ride, and it's still far from set.
Absolutely. I know I came a bit from behind because I hadn't done a single race the first 3 weeks, but I hope I surprised a few people.
You know what? I mean, all I can say to that is you're the #1 seed in the group for a reason. You're a very good runner. It's been very enjoyable racing against you and watching you race. And best of luck to you on your last couple of races.
Well, thank you. And I'm going to let you finish commentating, Gus. I have an interview to do over with the French people over on Speed Gaming Francais.
Have fun with that. All right, thanks, Rywek.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Rywek, winner of this race. Again, if you've enjoyed what you've seen and you wish to give these runners a follow, feel free to. We've got !R in the chat to bring up their channels. Still a lot more rando tournament action going on. Rywek could solidify his placement into the bracket stage. You know what? I don't know if 1 win will do it, or just risk a tiebreaker. If he gets 2 wins, though, I think that'll pretty much have it set. But either way, still far from over, even though we've only got 2 days left on it. So at this point, we have Gus heading back into the Palace of Darkness. That bow in hand, that will be the last dungeon. Aghanim's Tower has already been defeated. Defeated? Completed? Cleared? Beaten? Insert other word here that means the same thing. And yes, still without any keys.
Yeah, he's going to have to buy keys, and he needs at least one. And remembers, oh yeah, that was
Had
the
to take
sword
any. That was the sword cave. I'm almost a little bit interested to see that it's a red rupee, though, instead of the green with the 20 on it. The way that they would normally do if it was in the item pool.
Well, and the interesting thing is, when it's retro mode swordless, it's actually 300 rupees.
Huh. I can't say that's a mode that I'm itching to play, so I did not know that.
I honestly would not want to play it either. Just something we found when we were doing commentary for one not too long ago.
Today we all learned. And for general interest as well, later on in the day, for A Link to the Past Randomizer tournament, on Speed Gaming 5 at 7:30 p.m., we have Matt 7898 versus DKS89 in a Ganon goal, defeat Ganon, key sanity. Everything else is pretty much as normal as it can be at that point. And then at 8:30 p.m. we have two races. The first one, Speed Gaming 2, we have GFE versus T-Stew, which is just an all dungeons standard seed. And also at 8:30 on Speed Gaming 1, we have McLagging versus ALG Andy, and this is an all dungeons swordless hard enemizer, so that might be more of a doozy of a combination than this one was. And then lastly this evening on Speed Gaming 5 at 9:30 p.m. we have Game 2, it looks like a doubleheader between Matt and DKS. So both of those matches will be on Speed Gaming 5.
Oh, and Gus is out of money at this point.
Need the 10 arrows right there, or 10 rupees right there, just to shoot that last eye statue.
Yeah, I think this is... Oh, I mean, this is just kind of a new wrinkle in retro mode. Money management is such a big part, and I think we can now confirm Gus has not forfeited this particular race, unfortunately. Just too many things piling up, and you already see your opponent completing, and you're like, yeah, it's time for me.
Yep. You know what? It gets to a point where there's no shame in that. Gus had a very, very good start, very, very strong beginning, kept on pace, was even ahead of Rywek, I would say, for a little bit of this. And unfortunately, soon after, things just piled up and all these twists and turns. You know what? These things happen. Every runner experiences it. Top runners experience it. It's just part of the game at times. Sometimes you just have off days, and you know what? That's okay. So GG's to Gus, though. Really, really nice job. Had that unfortunate mishap with the bow, but still, really, really solid work all around.
Absolutely. If not for just a couple pieces of random things that happened to Gus, he would have been right there in this race, and almost better in some aspects. But yeah, that's random. So this, as we were talking about, this win by Rywek will really put an emphasis on his match on Wednesday. And then let's not forget, he also has a match on Tuesday. Oh, but I think joining us now is Gus. GG's, man.
Hey, thanks.
I mean, I want to say right off that you did a good job, despite what I don't know what might be on your mind right now. Really, I would just say to chalk it up to randomizer happens. The first hour, 10 minutes or so was a really, really close race. Could have been anyone's race at that point, really. It was just such an unfortunate thing that the bow location was where it was, and it just eluded you just that little bit too long.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate and it's a little bit stupid at the same time because, I mean, my logic was that, I mean, I don't have the lamp, so it's out of logic. So, I mean, it's just one chest. What are the odds of like there being an item there?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I mean, it's so quick to just go and check it as well. It's like not a minute at most, so you may as well. So, yeah.
I mean,
don't know.
Combined with the fact that you had just gotten the hammer and that was your Dark World access, I mean, surely you were thinking there's much better places to go too. So there's definitely no fault in that.
Yeah, I guess that was like what I was thinking at the moment, like just getting Dark World access. So. But I mean, when I started to feel like things were really starting to like fall apart was probably sometime after when I found the flute and the Titanids on Death Mountain. So, I mean, at that point, I was pretty sure that. I mean, I knew there was I had left some progression item behind, but I was pretty sure and kind of hoping that it would be the lamp. But so that's I mean that's kind of why I went to Ice Palace and Myra and all of that. Which I mean, after doing those, they didn't have anything. So at that point, I kind of knew that okay, it's not just the lamp; it's something a lot more important. So.
Mm-hmm. And that makes sense. And Misery Mire, a pretty solid choice in general, no matter what in Retro, just because of the number of small keys that are in chests in that dungeon that are now items. Unfortunately, the thing was there that the lamp would not be able to be there just because of where the flute was. It would have literally been lamp locked to get to Misery Mire. And then finding the mirror, opening up Swamp Palace to get to the lamp finally. It's just wow, what a sequence. And the craziest thing about that is that the mirror was accessible pretty early on because you guys were finding swords left and right in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, when I play like Key Sanity, I often have that chest on my mind, but in this race, I kind of forget that there could be an item there as well. So there was a little while there where I didn't really know where my progression item was because I felt like I had checked everything.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm actually in the exact same school of thought. Key Sanity, yeah, I know that those are item locations instead of keys. Retro mode, I don't know why it just doesn't always register with me right away. It's the same concept, it's just not Key Sanity, so I don't think of it. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah,
Rando's weird. Well, you have any closing thoughts or anything that you might want to... Anything on your mind at all about the groups, or how many... Do you have races left, or no?
I have 3 left with Burn, but I haven't really checked the... well, I don't know if it's can progress to bracket, so I'm not sure if we're gonna finish those or not. We haven't scheduled anything yet, so I guess we'll see about that.
Fair enough. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this was Gus. Once again, if you've enjoyed what you've seen, please consider giving these runners a follow. I'm going to sign us on out of here. Along with Vitasia, I'm in the name of DT, and we had our Sigma on tracking for us this afternoon. Vitasia, my good friend, it's been a pleasure commentating and chatting about this game with you for a little bit.
Well, always a pleasure working with you, DT. One of my favorite people to work with.
It's much appreciated. Everyone out there in Chatland, stay tuned. There is more Rando coming up. Check out the full Speed Gaming schedule to see anything else that might exist on these channels. Lots of other tournaments running year-round. And be sure to follow Speed Gaming's 1 through 6 for more of this tournament, as well as checking out the ALTTP Randomizer channels for more of this tournament. Thanks for watching, guys. Take it easy.